Hi everyone, welcome back to Waterhouse Forde. Today you're back on the mower. In our last video, we did a quick run through, basically dewinterizing, getting the machine ready for essentially the cutting season, which is just about upon us. But I'd neglected to buy some of the parts we needed, the basic parts we needed for the engine. I thought I'd ordered them. I thought they'd come in, but in fact they were indeed for another machine. Anyway, that's now been corrected. I've now got the parts. I've now fitted the air filter. I've changed the spark plug. I've replaced the oil and one other thing. Oh, and the fuel filter. So that's all been done now, and it's running really well. Really happy actually with the way the engine is running now. I did run it a little bit after the last video before changing these parts. And did cut a little bit of grass just to kind of warm it up, get it really running well. The main issue that I had identified was that the choke wasn't working properly before. The cold start wasn't fantastic, and I determined that one of the linkages, the linkage that operates the choke lever, I'd obviously installed it incorrectly last time we did the service. And it wasn't running true, it wasn't parallel, and as a result it wasn't actually engaging the choke butterfly properly. So very minor correction, but it's now starting perfectly, which I'm really happy about. Excuse me. But today's video, I did promise you that we were going to take a look at the deck, the actual cutting deck. So what I'm about to do, I'm going to just show you quickly how to remove the deck. I'm not going to film it because it's impossible to work under there and film at the same time. But I will quickly bring you down and show you what you need to do in order to remove the deck. It's really easy. There's only literally two nuts that need to be removed, and then 3 clips, and the whole thing comes out. And of course you've got to remove the belt as well. But it's really not difficult at all. The reason for removing the deck on this occasion is I do want to get to the blades. I want to pop them off, sharpen them, rebalance them, put them back on. And then what we're going to do, and this will be the main part of the video, is we're going to set the deck height. And we're going to do it properly as is explained or described in the actual service manual, workshop manual for this mower. I'm going to step you through that step by step so that if you have one of these mowers, it doesn't have to be this exact model, anything similar to this, then you can follow this procedure to set the cutting height on your deck. And it's really important that you do that from time to time because they do get out of alignment for a couple of reasons. One, obviously as you're mowing and you're sort of moving around, you're hitting things potentially, or riding over rocks or anything like that. It can actually get the deck out of alignment, but also because it's essentially, well, the lifting mechanism is a cable, and that cable will eventually over time will stretch, and you probably just need to, it's normally only fine adjustments, but you do need to check it from time to time. I would say once every other year when you're doing your service. You could do it every year if you wanted to, at least just check it. But you'll probably find that probably once every other year it might need a little bit of adjustment. But anyway, this one is completely out of alignment. I've noticed that it definitely cuts lower on one side. Again, it's possible, and it's probable that we never set it 100% correctly last time. And so this time I'm going to step you through it. I've got a level surface where we're going to put the mower. And we're going to go through, follow the instructions in the manual exactly so that you can see what the proper procedure is, and hopefully we're going to get it spot on. That's the plan. That's hopefully what this video is all going to be about, and unless we run into any issues, of course, but yeah, let's see how we get on. Okay, so we're down the side of the mower now. You can see here we're looking at the deck, and we've got a couple of things that I want to show you. First one is here. Let me just zoom in and move the light. So you see this bolt here, this nut here. There's one here and there's one on the other side. Those two need to be removed, and that I would suggest you do first, because as the deck lowers, because it will lower when you loosen those, the deck will then fall down or drop down and ride or sit on these wheels, these front guard wheels. So that's a good thing. Then at the back here, you can see we've got a clip here. We've got one at the back there as well. I'll see if I can zoom in on it. Back there. You can see it there. And then there's also one, see if I can get the light on it. Where are we? Can't quite see where we are. I think that's showing there now, so if I bring my finger just there, there's a third one over there. So those three clips need to be pulled out. The washers, obviously try and save, or grab the washers before they fall, and that should allow you, or will allow the deck to lower. Now of course you also need to remove your belt, and to remove the belt you do need to loosen this adjustment spring over here. So we're going to do that first. That's the first thing you want to do, get your belt loosened, get the tensioner loosened, and then remove the belt itself. For that you will need to use a little bit of brute force. Once that tensioner is loose, you'll find that you can actually pull this belt and lift it up over this pulley. I'm on the left hand side of the mower as you're facing forward essentially, and I find it easier or easiest to take the belt off and put it on from this side. That's so that should get the belt off. Should get the deck off. The deck will literally fall down or rest down on the ground, and then you just slide it out, pull it out from either side, and that will get you going and allow you to then work on the deck. So when I get to that stage, I will come back. So you can see we've got the deck off. I've got it outside just to give it a bit of a tidy up. As you can see, I've also already removed the blades. But yeah, we'll just tidy that up. Let's move to the blades. Okay, here we go. You can see the blades. Now look, they're not looking horrific. I think they just need a bit of a tidy up, really. But yeah, no, we'll just give them a quick sharpen. Okay, so what I've got here is a whetstone, which I use for sharpening various things, but blades in particular. And as you can see, so you've got water in the bowl here, and the wheel picks up the water, and that keeps everything cool. So that just prevents any opportunity for the blades to be overheated, which I quite like. This model you can go backwards and forwards. I'm going to start with it coming backwards, so in other words with the wheel turning towards me, and I'll show you what we do. Well, let me bring a blade over, so hopefully you can see this. I'll just turn the visor the viewfinder so I can see as well. So this is so this side is the cutting edge. You can see that's the one that's got all the nicks in from hitting stones and stuff. And then this does have a bit of an edge on it up here, which is interesting. I hadn't noticed that before. But this angle, this is a very acute or aggressive angle here. This is the bit that causes or helps with the mulching. So my understanding is that creates a draft and airflow, which pushes the grass back up and around and basically back into the blade. That's my understanding. I don't know if that's entirely correct, but look, looking at this cutting edge, you can see this one's quite badly damaged, and we may have to do some remedial work on that. But what I like to do in the first instance is basically just polish the bevel edge first, and see how when we've done that, we then see how badly these nicks are and whether we can live with them. Look, this isn't never going to be, you know, like a knife blade kind of finish. It is just a mower after all. But what we do want to make sure of is that we can actually get a sharp edge on all of this, in particular around the tip, because that is the part of the blade that hits the grass first, and generally that's the part that is least sharp. As you can see, this one is very rounded actually on that edge, so that's going to require quite a bit of work. Let's see how we get on and where we finish up, and then we'll have to make a decision on whether we need to restart this edge, but I'm hoping that that we don't need to. I won't film the whole thing. I'll do a little bit because this is going to take quite a while. I'll film a little bit, show you the progress, and we'll go from there. So hopefully you can see this now. This is because this is such a contoured blade. It's actually going. You have to move it around a lot in order to get into all the essentially nooks and crannies. But you can see. So this sort of raised bit here, you got to be careful not to overdo it here, because that's actually the easiest bit to get to, and also the tip. Which actually on the tip we need to go quite a bit. So I'm not too fussed about that. But you can see back here. This is quite difficult to get into, so you have to keep moving the blade and changing position on the wheel in order to get in there, which may look odd when you're observing, but that's essentially what I'm trying to do, is to get into these hollows essentially, there and this big one here. Okay, as I said, I'm not going to film the whole thing, but you can see we're starting to get most of that edge now. We've got a couple of bits here where we're not quite getting in, but I'll keep working on that. Here where the worst sort of damage is on the blade, I think we're going to be able to bring this back quite a bit, and I think that's actually going to be fun. And then there's quite a bit more work to do on the tip, which I will finish with, because that generally is the easiest bit. So I'm going to keep going. I'm not, as I say, I won't film the whole thing because it's not very good material for filming. But yeah, that's essentially the process. I'll come back when I got more to show. Okay, this is kind of where we finished up. Still a couple of dull spots there, right in those corners, but actually that edge is not bad, so I'm not going to bother too much about that. This was the first one we worked on. You can see quite a bit more. I managed to get quite a bit more off of that one, but the main thing is really wanted to focus on this tip and get a nice bevel on there as I say, because that's the bit that hits first. And basically you want as long, you want your bevel to be long and shallow, essentially. That helps to keep the blade sharper for longer, if that makes sense. But down here we had quite a lot of damage. That's now okay. Still got a couple of chunks you can see taken out of the blade here. I think you can see that. But again, it's just a mower, right? It doesn't need to be perfect. It's not a Japanese carving knife. Right, so the next step now would be to balance this blade. And the way to do that basically is to suspend it from the center pivot hole, essentially. And what you want is that not to dip. Now my finger's not the right thing. It needs to be something nice and smooth, because my finger's actually providing resistance for that. So I'm going to set something up, and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, just to show you what I've done, I've got this is actually the chuck key for my lathe, but that's got a nice diameter there for that, that blade sits comfortably on, and most importantly it's metal, it's nice and smooth, so the blade can pivot freely on that. Now you can see, let me bring you to the side. I think you can see this blade is quite well balanced. It's a little bit heavier on this side. This side is obviously angling down just a little bit. So what we want to do is take a little bit more material off this side in order to get this blade to level up. That's what we're looking for, is that for that blade to be as level as possible. Funny enough, if you move it to the end there, oh no, that's catching. Yeah, so I'm going to take a little bit more off this side of the blade. Now, you can take it off. It's best to take it off the cutting edge. But if you get to a point where you don't want to take any more off that, what I tend to do is to flip it over and take some off the back here, just to remove some weight. But essentially, what you're wanting to do is to remove a little bit of weight. So I'm going to work on that, and interestingly, this is the side that I've done less work on. So it kind of makes sense that side is still the heavier side. But so let me do a little bit more work on that, and then I'll come back. Okay, so there you can see now that I've taken a bit more off this side, and that seems to be leveling up, basically, or laying level, which basically means that this blade is equally heavy on either side, and essentially balanced. And that's as simple as it is. That didn't take a lot, probably only about another 2 minutes. I did focus on the tip again, because again, the more weight you can take off the tip, the better, but also because again, we do want this tip to be the sharpest and the best of all. So yeah, that's basically it. So that's that blade done. I will now move on to the other one and complete that, and then we'll move on to the deck. Again, I'm not going to film too much about the work on the deck. Mostly it's just cleaning up, but what I really wanted to get onto is getting the deck back in and setting the height. That's what the main topic of this video is. Okay, so we've got the deck back on, and as you can see, I've now moved the mower so it's standing on this board. The board is pretty much level. It's very, very close to level. It doesn't have to be 100% level, but what you want is a flat surface, preferably as close to level as possible, which is kind of what we've got. Now, the first thing you want to do is make sure that all your tires have been pumped up to whatever tire pressure you want them to have. On this one, I've got the fronts pumped up to 9 psi and the back up to 6 psi. The main thing is to make sure that they're all, or at least left and right, are equal. So if you've got basically your front, your left and right needs to be equal, and your back, left and right, needs to be equal. And the reason for that, obviously, is that if one of them was flat, then of course the mower would not be standing straight. So we're now going to move on to leveling the deck. For that, I'm going to have to, again, kind of take you underneath, show you what I'm going to be doing. I will obviously try and film a little bit of the procedure, but it's actually, again, really difficult to film and work under the deck, or on the deck under the mower pretty much at the same time. But nevertheless, I'm going to try and film as much of it as I can. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go handheld. I'm going to go under the deck and show you what I'm going to be doing, and then we'll do it, and again I will talk through what I'm doing as I'm doing it and try to film as much of it as possible. Okay, now the first thing you want to do is get yourself 2 pieces of wood, and you want to obviously measure them, plane them if you need to, cut them if you need to, but basically you need 2 that are 26 millimeters wide and 2 that are 32 millimeters wide. The 26 go in the front and the 32s go at the back. I'll show you what I mean. So So we take a 26, as I said, the 26 goes in front, and what we want to do is put it under the deck, like that, in line with the hub, the blade hub, so that there, and yeah, and basically so that the deck can come down onto that block. That's what we're looking for. And the 32 goes at the back. So again, I've got my 32. I'm going to put it in line with the hub, and that's in place there. Right, so we've got the 26 in the front and the 32 at the back, and we're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. But before we do that, let me show you what we're then going to do. Just get my trolley bed situated. Right, now we're going underneath. Now underneath here you can see we have, this is an adjuster here, and over here we have the cable that comes down from the handle, from the lever. You've got one adjuster here, one opposite on the on the other side, and you've got just one in the front. I'll take you around the other side and I'll show you that. Now, what we're going to do, once I've got the other blocks in on the other side, I'm going to lower the height lever down to level number 1. And at level number 1, or when it's at level number 1, we're then going to loosen the top bolt, the top nut, sorry, and the bottom nut on all 3 of these. And essentially we're going to allow the deck to be resting on the blocks. Once it's resting on the blocks, what we're going to do is we're going to basically tighten the top nut and basically just take up the slack so that we get to the point where the deck is just about to lift off of the block, and that's where we set it. And we do all 3 of those. Once that's done, we then want to check the cable adjustment and make sure that basically the cable should be tight but not under massive pressure. So the main thing is that it shouldn't be loose, but also we want it to be straight, right? So there should be no slack in it, but at the same time we don't want it to be holding the weight necessarily. So that if you imagine the blocks being removed, the cable at that point is going to hold the deck where you've set it. That's what you're looking for. Alright, so like I said, it's as you can imagine, extremely difficult to film and work under here. So I am going to try to set up the camera as best I can and run through the procedure, but most importantly I'll be talking through the procedure for you so that hopefully you can follow as I'm doing it. Just quickly, around the other side, I just want to show you what we've got as well. Let me just find where we are. So here's the 3rd adjuster, which is basically the front one, and at the back here, hopefully you can see it, there's the other back one. So in the front you've only got the 1, and at the back you've got 2, and that is enough. Well, apparently enough to hold the deck where you need it. Okay, so first thing we want to do, I've now set the blocks on all 4 corners, again in line with the hub. Now what we're going to do is lower the height lever down to position number 1. I am also going to put the brake on, the hand brake, so that the mower hopefully doesn't move while we're doing this. Okay, the nuts, the lock nut and the nut on the height adjustment nut are size 17 spanner, 17 mil. So you need 2 of those. And see if I can do this without knocking the camera. So what I'm doing now, I'm loosening these 2 nuts at the back. And in particular, because I can see there's already no tension on it, I'm lowering the lower one, dropping the lower one basically. Now I'm going to go around the other side, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing on those two, front and back. And this front one also it's actually already dropped. As soon as I lowered the nut or loosened the nut, it dropped, as in the depth dropped. So it's now resting on the block as we want it to. I'll do the back one quickly. And again, this back one is adjusting as I'm loosening it. So these are quite far out of adjustment, from what I can tell. Okay, so we've got all three sets of height adjusters now loose. Just make doubly sure. Yeah, 100%. So that's now, the deck is 100% leaning on, or resting on rather, the blocks. Remember, the front ones are 26, back ones are 32, so the front is slightly lower than the back. And the lever is at position number 1. Okay, the next step now is to adjust the cable so that it is taut, as the manual describes. So I'm going to have a quick look. Yeah, and that's loose. I'm going to bring you down here so you can see what we're starting with. So hopefully you can see. Let me change hands. Hopefully you can see here we've got both nuts loose. The deck is, or this adjust this. Yeah, the deck is essentially not influenced by either of those nuts, but the cable is not taut. The cable is actually loose, as in I can wiggle it. So what we want to do is loosen these lock nuts and adjust this up so that that cable is taut, and then we can move to tighten these so that the deck just starts to lift off of these blocks, or is about to lift. When it's about to lift, that's where we want it to be. Okay, so I hope I've got all right spanners. What we want to do is loosen those lock nuts that you saw on the cable adjuster. That's too big. There we go. Okay, and we know that that needs to go. In order to make it tighter, we need to essentially unscrew the adjuster. That doesn't seem right to me. I need to just check the manual again, because I think this is the wrong way around. So the manual says to adjust the cable until it's taut, as I said, and then to tighten these 3 bolts. But the problem is, as soon as you start trying to adjust the cable, it raises the whole mechanism, and it will raise all the way to the end of the cable's travel. So to me that doesn't seem right. Well, that's as tight as it's going to get. Okay, well, we'll go with it. We'll keep going. So the cable is now, it's still loose, but it's at least it's straight. So now what I'm going to do, the manual says to go and basically what you want to do is screw down the nuts on the height adjusters on the other side of the mower. So the two on the right hand side where you've got both the front and the back. Just to the point at which the deck is about to start lifting off the blocks. Then to come back and do the left hand one exactly the same. And at that point they reckon it should be the correct adjustment. It should be the right height. So we're going to try that. I'm going to go around the other side and do that. I'm still not convinced about this cable, but we'll see. Because basically at the moment I've got the cable at its maximum adjustment, meaning the cable is, it's as if the cable has stretched completely and has no more adjustments in it, which I don't think is entirely correct. But anyway. So I'm now adjusting this, or tightening the nut on top, on the front one. It is a nylock nut, so it is a little bit, you have to do it with a spanner, which is a bit painful. So this might take a while. I think what I'll do is I'll skip this section on the video. Okay, I have now managed to get all 3 height adjusters to the point where I'm happy with them. It was a little bit of a faff, I have to say. I had to adjust them all a couple of times to get it to actually to where they were all holding the deck level, if that makes sense. My suggestion to you, actually, if I was doing this again, I think when you're adjusting them, adjust each of them a little bit at a time, rather than doing one and then thinking that the others will just fall in line. Especially in my case where there was a lot of adjustment required. What I should have maybe done is done each of them, I don't know, maybe 5 turns and then 5 turns and 5 until it's kind of, but the point is, it's now at the point where all 3 of them are just at the point of wanting or needing to lift or they're about to start lifting the deck. The other thing I worked out with that cable adjustment, when they say taut, I think what they mean is that it's, again, just starting to take up pressure on the height adjustment mechanism. Because again, I actually did adjust that back a bit. Because I couldn't get the deck level, and what I worked out was that the one nearest the cable was actually holding, it was creating a pivot point essentially, that the whole deck was balancing on. Loosening that cable resolved that problem. Now there is, right, so the next thing that they say is to move the deck up and down a little bit and make sure that it is moving smoothly, and that it comes back down again smoothly. So I'm going to bring it up to level 3, level 5, won't go to level 7. In fact, 5 is now the highest. So that tells me that that cable is still not right. Let me just double check myself. Yeah, actually, what's happening is that the adjustment bolts are now hitting into the bottom of the chassis. Yeah, that's no good. Right, so something's not worked, something's not right. The other thing I want to just check, if I take all the blocks out, what happens when I come all the way down? Okay, so that is holding the deck, but it has come quite a bit lower than the blocks. Can't get the blocks underneath it, so that is not right. I can't help thinking that it's got something to do with this cable. I'm just going to adjust the cable and see what happens. Okay. Okay, so I can almost get the rear block in. The front one is still much too low. Check the other side. Okay, that one is... So the back seems to be... So adjusting the cable all the way up, as in making it as tight as possible, means that the back spaces now just about fit in, but the front ones don't. So the front is essentially too low. Now there is a front to back adjuster, which we haven't got to yet. That was going to be the next step in the process. So I'm wondering if that's messing with us. But even so, now with that cable adjusted, can we get any higher than 5th position? Still not. Okay. So I think we need to start again. Okay. I think what we're going to do, this bar here is the one that controls the front to back adjustment. You can see we've got a adjuster at the back here. Hopefully that's focused. And at the moment that is under tension, so I think what I'm going to do now, I'm going to basically start again, but this time I'm also going to make that bar, or hopefully get that bar to where it's not under tension, and then I'm going to start with trying to set that, at least to get that to the point where it's essentially just taking up some strain or tension from the front. Then set the 3 height adjusters, starting with the front, then with the ones at the back, The two at the back are also designed to, what's the word? It's basically to adjust your left to right alignment. So making sure that the deck is essentially aligned left to right. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to start this side, which is the right hand side of the mower. As I say, I'm going to get this bar set to where it's just taking up tension. I'm going to set the front adjuster first, then the back one, and then the one on the left hand side of the mower, and hopefully that way I can get it all at least level. Now the other thing is the cable. I think so, thinking about this, we need the full travel of the cable, so we need to be able to raise the lever all the way to position number 7 on this mower. And at the moment we're not getting that full travel because essentially the deck is getting to where it's so high that essentially the cable can't pull anymore. I think what I need to do is adjust it so that the lever can be in position number 7, and obviously note where that adjustment is on the cable adjuster, which is on the other side of the mower. Excuse me. And then bring it down to position number 1, and again note where the cable is, and then I know those are my two limits of travel essentially in terms of the cable itself. So I'm going to be having a look at that and working on that as well before I start making any adjustments, so I can make sure that we, at least on the lever and cable, we have the full travel, and then take up any slack after that, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But that's my plan. I will see how that goes, and I'll report back when I'm done. Okay, I think I've got it to where I'm happy with it. Now, there's a couple of things. I'm absolutely convinced that there's essentially a typo in the workshop manual. I got to thinking that nobody ever really mows in position number 1. Or if you do, I mean, that's normally, you want that to be pretty low. We normally take it down to position number 3 on the height adjuster, which is there. So what I've done, I've set it on position number 3 with 26 at the front, 32 at the back. That means I know I've got at least another 2 settings below if I ever really do want to go any lower. But more importantly, that actually then seems to align with essentially the length of the cable, which is the problem we encountered yesterday. But it is now basically operating. What I did is I loosened off everything. The first thing I did was I brought in position 3, I brought the cable adjustment to where it was just basically starting to take up basically the mechanism is starting to move. As soon as it started to move, that's where I left the cable. I then adjusted the front to back, that lever that I showed you a couple of minutes ago, that front to back lever, I got that to where that was again just taking up or starting to move the mechanism in the front, and I left it there to start with. I then brought up all 3 lifting points. I brought them to where again they were just essentially there's a knuckle. It's working through a knuckle. Basically the knuckle was no longer moving. I mean, it would move, but you could feel there was tension on it. So I got each of them to that point. One other thing I should mention is I did tighten up those knuckles. There's a nylock nut at the back. I tightened those as well because they seem very, very loose to me. So I tightened them to where they tight and then go back a quarter turn so that they can, because they do need to swivel. Anyway, so yeah, I as I say, took the 3 lifting points to where the bolts, the nuts on top, the nylock nuts are just touching and basically just starting to takes some weight of the deck. One thing, I think this deck might be a little bit buckled, because actually when I've got it on the blocks and there's nothing on the mower is actually holding it or influencing it, it does actually rock on those blocks. So I think that this deck might be a little bit buckled or bent. There might be that at one of the points where I've got the block, there's a high point or a low point or whatever. It's only a couple of millimeters, but I had to kind of take that into account as I was adjusting. But in essence, I believe it's now, so I believe it's now set as it should be. Then what I did is I took it up to position number 5 on the lever and measured the front, the 2 measurements on the front and the 2 measurements on the back. And you want to be maintaining that difference of about 6 millimeters between front and back as you're raising the deck or lowering the deck. And I've got it to where at least I'm happy with it. If you find that that distance or that difference between front and back is changing too much, it's that front to back lever that I showed you that you need to adjust. If you lengthen that lever, it will cause the front to go basically lower and also to rise slower. Those two things go together. If you find that the front is essentially lazy, then you want to shorten that lever, that front to back lever on the right hand side of the mower. Look, I'm going to go take it for a bit of a test drive now and see how it feels, see how it cuts, and check to see whether I'm essentially happy with this setting. But I believe it is now, at least in position number 3, it will be cutting 26 in the front and 32 at the back. The reason why there's a difference between front and back, basically, I think I might have mentioned this already, but basically obviously the blades are hitting the grass first in the front, and that's actually the height that you're going to cut to. That 26 is essentially 26 millimeters is the height that you're going to cut to, broadly speaking, because the blade, I think the blade is level with the base of the deck, but in relation to the base of the deck, that 26 millimeters is the height that it's going to operate at. Obviously, if your blade is 2 millimeters higher than the deck, then it'll be 28 millimeters. Or if it's lower, it's not lower, but if it were, then obviously it'll be less. Anyway, I think that's it. Like I say, I'm going to take it for a drive and a little bit of a mow and see how I feel about it. If I determine anything different, I'll come back. But otherwise, I will basically say goodbye now. That's pretty much, hopefully, the end of this video. So I will wish you all a great week ahead. I hope that you all have a good one. And of course, we'll hope to see you on the next video. Cheers for now.